Welcome to the German Marshall Fund of the United States. My name is Heather Conley. I'm president of GMF, and we are delighted to be able to have a power conversation with Jan Lipavský, Foreign Minister of Czechia. Of course, Czechia is now the rotating EU presidency, and what an incredible presidency it is. Very action-packed indeed. So let's begin. And first and foremost, Minister, I sort of feel like cometh the hour, cometh your presidency. And what timing that we have today, because this is the day before an emergency European Union summit on energy. And we'd love to hear, a little preview, if you can, of, this extraordinary moment when Gazprom has stopped gas flow to Europe. You have calls for a wholesale gas cap on prices, oil price cap from the G7. Can you help our listeners sort of understand where we're going and what you expect to achieve from the Energy Summit? And again, sorry to jump right in, but we have 30 minutes and I wanted to welcome you and get started.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me. And of course, I am ready to jump right into the issue of an extraordinary energy summit, which will convene on Friday. And everyone in Europe expects from this summit to show a solution for the energy crisis, which is upcoming since Putin used energy as a weapon, and he thinks he can blackmail us into submission, but he won't be able to do so. And the reason is that Europe will be able to overcome this issue. But yes, now we are in a situation when the energy in Europe is scarce, the prices are skyrocketing up, and this has severe impacts on several sectors and also on governments as such. So governments are calling for this extraordinary session. And what we can expect, honestly, that's a good question, but definitely there will be common solution. We need to be able to find a way how to procure energies commonly, for example, gas and LNG. Definitely, Europe needs a framework for capping price of energies, at least for the time when the energy market is not working properly. So it's about surviving this winter. I think we will be successful in the end of the day. Once the European agreement is achieved on Friday, then national states need to implement it, because it won't be dictated by this agreement only. And Putin won't be successful with his evil plans, with his plans to freeze us. I think everyone could see that video which Gazprom released on YouTube, that Europe will freeze. Europe won't freeze, but we need to do energy savings. We need to do regulation in terms of prices, and we need to procure more energy from different sources. And there need to be strong act of government on that, because market won't solve it in a time frame of upcoming winter.
Those are extremely powerful words, and I think that clarity is so vital. But what I'm concerned about is not all EU members are following this energy ban, or we have, of course, the Hungarian government that is welcoming additional Russian energy. Is there unity at this EU table tomorrow on Friday for this emergency summit? Because Hungary does not appear to be following in any way EU guidance on this.
Of course, the EU is what the member states are able to agree on. So let's expect more something which would be guidance and framework, and something which would allow states to do certain measures. And I don't want to predict all the details, because the debate is really vivid and still going on.
A lot of concern that European unity is beginning to really feel the strain 6 months into the war. We now have President Biden today reaching out to allies and partners to continue to strengthen them and their solidarity and support of Ukraine. But we also saw over the last weekend 70,000 demonstrators in the streets of arguing against that. You now starting to see again Prime Minister Orban of Hungary trying to pull apart some of the EU sanctions on individual Russian oligarchs. Help our listeners understand the need for European solidarity, and are you concerned even domestically within Czechia whether that unity can sustain itself during this very difficult period?
I hope and I wish and I believe in European unity, because this is the one of the strongest things Europe has. Once we achieve unity, it's similar to NATO. Once we agree on something, it is very strong, and this is the most powerful thing we can be collectively doing. And yes, there was a big demonstration, and we have to be very empathetic and listen to those who are nervous for different reasons, and there will be pressure on European societies. But in the end of the day, I believe that our government will be able to resolve properly this issue, and that the European Union will put such measures that will this successful deal with. I think I understand it resonates, and maybe it's also some kind of wake-up call for certain states which are not in such a situation that the countries in Central Europe are.
Help us understand, the EU just made a very important decision to suspend the 2007 visa facilitation, Russian visa holders to come into the EU. And we really saw, I think, a dynamic where you had certainly reluctance from Paris and Berlin to support that, and you had the frontline states, if you will, along the eastern flank, really very concerned about the number of Russian tourists, not the humanitarian visas. Describe that conversation. Again, this gets back to my point on unity. Are we really, I'm very concerned about the East-West divide within the EU. And of course, the Czech presidency is managing that balance. Give us some insight into that conversation.
Definitely, that's something which our president did push it ahead, and I would say that quite successfully. So there was an informal meeting of all ministers of foreign affairs of the EU here in Prague 2 weeks ago, and basically this issue was on the agenda, and we were able to push it ahead. We started with this issue in July with non-paper, and then the vivid debate started. And what we were able to achieve is to stop the visa facilitation agreement, because this agreement is built upon a condition that we want to have a positive relationship between the EU and Russia. Definitely, Russia don't fulfill this condition yet, so there is no reason to for the EU to have a fast line for Russians to apply for visas. It's not a visa ban, it's only cutting the option of fast line. And I think there was agreement on that, almost unanimous. We started with this, but also during the summer, Northern Baltic states came up with a real security concern, because there's a huge amount of Russian citizens with valid European Schengen visa entering the physical border, Finnish-Russia border, Estonian-Russia border, Latvia-Russian border. And they have a profound security concern which needs to be addressed. So the ministers were able to agree that the institutions, the European institutions, should be looking for ways how to limit those travels. One of them is to less number of visa, but there is a 12 million Schengen visas already issued. So we are also looking for ways how to limit this usage. There's a multiple ways, but let's see what the Commission will propose and how that will be agreed. But we have to listen to security concerns. It's not only about the fact that we need to show the elites of Russian society, which they think that some special military operation in Ukraine doesn't concern them. We need to show them that this concerns them, and they support full Putin regime is not right. Because in a time of crisis, and even your inaction makes you somehow guilty.
I think people would be surprised to understand that there are 12 million Russian Schengen visa holders, and
yes.
But I think what you've described is a really thoughtful, careful way of bringing all of those concerns together and that careful diplomacy that has to happen underneath that. So thank you so much. Mr. Minister, I want to turn perhaps to a very self-interested topic, and that's the topic of a Marshall Plan for Ukraine. Clearly our name, the German Marshall, we're the living memorial to the Marshall Plan, and we know both the German government as chairs of the G7 and the European Commission has announced at the end of October a major donors conference to be held in Berlin, focusing on Ukraine's reconstruction. Now, there's been growing concerns in the U.S. that the European Union isn't stepping up with that important macroeconomic assistance and then the reconstruction assistance. Would welcome your thoughts on how the presidency, if the presidency will really focus on this donors conference and how you see the EU playing both as the Ukraine as a future, we hope, member of the European Union and that reconstruction funds.
Yes. So first thing first, Ukraine needs to win the war in the first place, but it doesn't prevent us from creating a framework for post-war reconstruction. And those conferences are very useful tool for creating such a framework. As a Czech presidency, for me, it's necessary to mention that the reconstruction of Ukraine should happen in a way that will be compatible to bringing Ukraine into the EU, since is the huge vision of Ukraine is to become a member of the EU. And the EU also has a lot of institutions and processes which can oversee that the money are spent in a proper way. And we know that such a big operation will be logically something where we need to be very careful how monies are spent. And I'm not only meaning that someone would like to siphon from those money, but that we are doing it in a clever way, which really will be helping to Ukraine and not only, let's say, interest of certain group profiting on that. So we need to coordinate. We need to be speaking about that. We need to provide political support. We need to exchange information on that. We need to include all players who want to become players in post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. Ukraine needs to have a proper word in that. In the end of the day, it will be Ukraine which will be rebuilding itself from those atrocities, and we are ready to take part on that and also facilitate it.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. And I think, absolutely, Ukraine must win this war. I would be derelict if I didn't ask your view. Although information is not completely clear, it really appears that the Ukrainian counteroffensive in both Kharkiv and Kherson, there's some success here. How do you feel about where we are 6 months into this? It's clearly going to be incredibly difficult, but your sense of where the Ukrainian military is in the conflict right now.
It's hard to say just from newspaper headlines and even the intel information is quite scarce on that. I think what's clear is that we are here for a prolonged conflict. We need to support Ukraine militarily, humanitarianly. We need to support Ukraine politically, and that's what Central Europe is doing and the Czech Republic is doing. So we have provided visas, refugee visas for 400,000 Ukraine refugees per capita. This is the biggest number from all European countries. We are sending quite a significant military help to Ukraine. I'm not able to disclose the numbers. I leave it to historians, but we are making a change on the ground, and we are not alone. Many other states in Europe are doing the same, and the USA too. And thank you very much for HIMARS. I think they are also part of the change. So the US is playing a key role in a situation when Ukraine is fighting for its freedom and democracy. Please remember that Zelensky was elected in a democratic elections. That's something definitely Putin cannot say aloud and mean it for real. So thank you very much for that. And The situation on front can change very easily. Of course, I feel happy for Ukraine be able to have a successes on military front, but we need patience. We need a good communication strategy. So the fatigue from war, when it bites, that we will survive, that we will continue, and that we will be able to explain to our societies that we need to face the evil and be strong in it.
Well, your last point is so true. Let me, if I may, transition a little bit. Russia and Vladimir Putin next week will be meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Uzbekistan for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And I think it's been a bit of a shock for some in the EU government officials of the unlimited partnership between Moscow and Beijing. It's starting to change, I think, perspectives in the EU about China. And certainly we have the trade embargo of China, of Lithuania. I would really welcome sort of how, again, as in the presidency, how you're managing these tensions, these great power tensions, if you will. And is our attitudes changing both across the EU on China and specifically in the Czechia? Is the perspective on China changing?
I wouldn't say that the perspective on China is changing. I think it's question if we even can call the Russian-Chinese relationship as a partnership. And if it was questionable before the war, now the Russia is definitely much weaker part of that relationship. And we have to understand that the whole world, the globe, is not understanding the war in Ukraine, the Russia war against Ukraine in the same way we do in what I would call West. Look what is the narrative in Africa. Look how India deals with the whole situation. And this is a big task for us to be very carefully listening their interpretation. And this is part of that. Russia is trying to outreach to the rest of the world with their narratives to get some political support. And our view on China is not changing. China is a systemic rival to Europe. We have the EU adopted a strategic compass. NATO adopted its own strategy for upcoming time. So, and China is defined also in a manner of threats, military threats, future possible military threats. And I think even also actions of China in South China Sea shows that there are some ambitions, not only will to cooperate on international scene. On the other side, China hasn't backed Russia fully. So I feel there is a place to maneuver, and we need to be very careful how we deal with these issues.
You a little bit because part of the Chinese diplomatic and economic framing of their relationship with Europe was the so-called 16+1, which at one point was 7+1, now it's 14+1 because Estonia and Latvia have now withdrawn from that grouping of both EU and non-EU members. Would Czechia consider also removing itself from the 14+1 construct? Is that even under active consideration?
We are looking at this issue all the time. We haven't reached to the point when we need to shut the door completely, but on the other side, basically no activities are currently happening here, so it's not even much relevant issue.
Well, and I think your very important point, which U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan just echoed in a recent interview, that the U.S. believes it has not seen, quote, large-scale Chinese support in terms of weapons for Russia. But, obviously, if there is a decision by Beijing to full throttle provide economic and military support to Russia, that would certainly change the sanctions calculations. Jake Sullivan also noted that, a Chinese invasion of Taiwan remains, in his words, a distinct threat. Are we, as Europe, as a transatlantic relationship, prepared for either more significant sanctions potentially based on China's approach towards the conflict, towards Russia or towards Taiwan. Help us understand some of the thinking that's going on around the EU table on that.
My reading and my assessment of the situation is that China is very concerned about sanctions. And what had happened 2 years ago was the US decision on chips. And if you look at the structure of sanctions against Russia, yes, there are some sanctions regarding the gas and oil, but the most important sanctions in reality are those focus on technologies of dual use, sanctions on investment, for example, in technologies or high-tech technologies which are undercutting Russia's ability to have a to economic growth midterm and long term. So maybe it's not that they would feel it this year or the year after, but they will feel it in decades. What China is good at it is thinking in decades ahead, and I think the Chinese leadership understand the situation and makes them very aware of ending up in the same basket that Russia is in regards of sanctions right now. At least I hope they think in this way, and also I would read it in a way that the Russian imperial colonialistic ambition to include Ukraine as a part of Russian empire, it's not definitely the Chinese interest. So why they would back up them so much if it's not in their interest, and it doesn't fit into their vision of the world and the China as a world leader.
I have to say, Minister, I feel like I've heard that conversation before in the lead up to February 24th. Why would Moscow possibly do that? They would not. They would work against their economic interest. I think sometimes we use our Western lens of logic, which makes sense to us, but that may not be part of the calculation of the leaders themselves. Well, now let me turn finally in our last 10 minutes to one of the key goals of your presidency, Europe as a task. And I have several questions, but I want to begin in many ways with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's speech that he gave, a very major speech in Prague last week, and sort of get your sense. Again, I'm going to come back to this sort of East-West division that has been in some ways highlighted by the war, but it existed well before that conflict began. What did you think was important about Chancellor Scholz's speech, particularly for Central Europe, where relationships have been strained, obviously, between Berlin in the lead up, whether it's Nord Stream 2 policy or what have you. So would welcome sort of your reflections, both as what you're trying to accomplish with this from the presidency perspective, but also from your perspective in Prague, and how you see Central Europe, because you're continuing to see those strains with Hungary and the rule of law, with Poland as well, unresolved. So really would welcome your insights on that.
Please understand that Europe is discussion. Europe has a variety of opinions. Europe has many divisions, but the EU is about unity. The EU is about what we are able to agree on, and you will always have some divisions lines in the EU. It depends on which perspective you are just applying to these debates. You can have a division south versus north on migration, for example. Now we are dealing with issue of Russia threats to security in Europe. So we may say that we may construct a division east versus west when the east is more cautious and coming with more radical solutions at some point. But in the end of the day, we have the unity. That's the point of it. And that comes back to what does it mean, Václav Havel's Europe as a task. And the task is to find the unity. So that's what the Czech presidency is working on. And the Olaf Scholz speech was also about unity. And he was proposing certain ideas, certain ways how we could more be working united. And of course, there is always debate leading to that unity. So yes, at specific moment on specific agendas, areas, you will always find a different kind of opinions. Now we need to solve the issue of energy crisis and maybe another sanctions, and that's how the debate goes. And there are states which would like to see maybe to have a to be less strict. But in the end of the day, we are able to find common solution. So, and maybe let me mention what we already achieved as a Czech presidency to the EU, to the EU Council. We were able to push through tightening sanctions against Russia. We were able to mobilize EU support for Ukraine. We have an achievement in the digital sphere when the EU defined its policy on cyber attacks and disinformations. We already have one result of energy security where we are able to agree that the EU states will be looking for savings of 50% of energy spendings. And we also, for example, launched access negotiation with Western Balkan countries, I mean North Macedonia and Albania. And we will, for example, deepen our EU-Israel relations since there will be resumption of EU-Israel Association Council, which will be held later this year in the autumn. So there is a lot of tasks behind us, and there is a lot of tasks in front of us. So Europe as a task, yeah, we all the time need to be working on our unity.
Well, that is a task list. That's all I can say.
Yes.
One quick question, and then I have a final closing conversation. So if the task is unity, I'm just thinking about the Visegrad Four, Poland, Hungary, Czechia, and Slovakia is something that has really been a unit that has worked well. Is there unity right now in the Visegrad Four? Is that a functioning unit in your view?
So Visegrad Four is a group of states which decided 30 years ago to meet and discuss different issues, and at different point in time the Visegrad cooperation was on different levels. And I think we are living in a Central Europe. We need to discuss with each other. We face same issues. Energy crisis is hitting us all the same the refugee crisis. So we have a lot of common agenda. Maybe our governments are now in a phase when we see different kind of solutions, but it doesn't mean that we need a frank and open debate. And that makes we for something that it's a valid format, and of course it will continue. But currently we are not in a situation that we would be able to find agreement on key agendas. So, but that moment might come again.
Well, I'll keep watching. It's a formation I followed most of my professional career, so I will follow that. So my final question, I want to fast forward you to December 31st of this year, when you'll have a glass of champagne on your desk, about ready to end your presidency. So in your mind, what will be success at the end of your presidency before you pass it on to the Swedish government to assume their rotating presidency? Tell us what success looks like at the end of your presidency.
Success will be united, strong Europe, able to deal with energy situation, able to support Ukraine in whatever state the war will be. Maybe the war will be over, maybe we will be still in war, but I'm sure that the Swedish presidency will get Europe in better shape than today, because we are working on that every day.
Well, Mr. Minister, I hope to raise that virtual champagne glass with you at the end of December. And I know part of that toast will, of course, be Slava Ukraini to Ukraine's great success. But let me just thank you on behalf of the German Marshall Fund. We had a power conversation, and you left us with some very powerful thoughts about the unity is the task. The issues that you are dealing with, we will see about that unity tomorrow as the Emergency Energy Summit happens, but we wish you all the best. We are so grateful for the strong transatlantic support, US-EU collaboration on so many of the issues that you had mentioned, but we know we are at this very uncertain geopolitical moment, and this is where the US and European Union relationship is so fundamental to our interests. So we thank you so much for the time you spent with us, and we'll give you the last comments before we go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be speaking to US audience, and I wish that soon we will able to meet and do some event in DC. So I wish that it will happen at some point. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.